All right. So welcome everyone. I'm watching to see as we get a few more folks entering the room before we get started, but it's good to see people on screen and it's good for me to be back. I know I've been in and out of these meetings the last few weeks with my work with the Housing Alliance down in Olympia. So good to be here. I may need to leave at some point during the meeting, but we'll see. We now have 31 folks in the room, so I would like to invite Rosemary to get us started as she does most weeks. And you're currently muted, Rosemary.
I thought I was so ready. And welcome everybody on this sunny day to our open table where membership in the coalition means being committed to ending homelessness and to engaging others with respect. We acknowledge that we gather on the homelands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians who have stewarded this coastal home for thousands of years. We honor their stewardship and challenge ourselves and our communities to listen to and act on their wisdom in protecting this earth we all share. Today, I'm thinking about workers and about the annual events that honor their labor, promoting safe working conditions, fair compensation, and greater representation in workplace decision making. I'll briefly mention two this morning that are coming this coming week. One is on April 28th and the other on May 1st. I'll start with May 1st, or May Day, which will likely be familiar to you, at least somewhat. International Workers' Day commemorates the Haymarket riots of 1886, when the U.S. Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions organized 80,000 workers to take part in a general strike demanding the 8-hour day and marched through the streets of Chicago. While the large May 1st march was peaceful, on May 3rd, striking workers attacked non-union scabs at a local industrial plant. Police responded and 2 workers were killed. A protest rally the next night in Haymarket Square brought more police response, and a bomb of unknown origin went off, killing 2 police. In 1889, the Socialist International, to commemorate the Haymarket labor action, established May 1st as a day to champion workers' rights, a day that became an international celebration of workers and a national holiday in many countries. The socialist origins of the annual commemoration didn't sit well with U.S. capitalist-oriented policymakers, and our National Labor Day celebration in September often focuses more on accolades to the American work ethic, community picnics, and the end of summer. Upcoming national protests planned for this May 1st by the group 5051, 50 states, 50 capitals in one day, take inspiration from early labor organizing. The protests call for coordinated actions by all who oppose the current national administration's extreme policies. They're trying to build support for a general strike throughout the country as a grassroots response to oligarchs who treat labor as the major cost that needs to be controlled to maximize profit. The other nationally recognized day is April 28th, a commemoration you may not know about. Workers' Memorial Day was established in 1970 at the time of the creation of OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, signed into law by President Richard Nixon. Events on this day honor workers who had died or were injured on the job over the past year. At the time OSHA became law, an estimated 38 workers lost their lives in workplace accidents every day, where today about 15 workers die each day. Then, as now, there continue to be many injuries and toxic exposures. Workers' Memorial Day has been commemorated every year since 1970. In an apparent effort to recreate the past, the current national administration promises a shift in how OSHA operates, based on their historical stance on regulatory reform and its focus on reducing government intervention in business practices. Currently, the president has halted a proposed federal standard requiring heat protections for workers in agriculture, construction, and warehousing. And as might be expected in such changes in policy, the website for the Department of Labor that includes OSHA states the following. Please note, as of 1/20/25, information in some news releases may be out of date or not reflect current policies. So how do these memorials and celebrations relate to the realities of homelessness? Consider this. There's not a single county in the United States where a full-time worker earning the local minimum wage can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Beyond this fact, 11.8 million U.S. workers are severely cost-burdened, spending an astounding 78% of their wages on rent alone. If you have experience of precarious housing, or if you share time with those who do, you already understand the impacts of this data. In this week of honoring workers, I recommend the work of anthropologist Bryan whose March 2025 book titled No Place for Us, Working and Homeless in America is an amazing book. He paints a vivid picture of the experiences of 5 families in urban Atlanta from 2019 to 2022 who are working, sometimes at 2 full-time jobs, but are unable to maintain secure housing for their families. They often end up couch surfing or living in a vehicle and are generally written out of both the statistics and the narratives about who is homeless. I honor the lives of these workers during this time of memorializing those who have died on the job and marking the importance of worker organizing power in May Day rallies and other public celebrations. I encourage us all to join in the public events on May 1st, opposing cuts to federally funded programs that will make it even more difficult to create safe and secure futures for low-wage workers and their families. To center us this morning, I close with a poem by U.S. feminist poet Ellen Bass that imagines both the despair and the determination of precariously housed and unhoused workers. The poem offers what can seem like a really impossible choice to make day after day and then again. The Thing Is by Ellen Bass. To love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it, and everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weighs you down like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief. You think, how can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no charming smile, no violet eyes, and you say, yes, I will take you, I will love you again. Welcome to this daily choice for life and to our common work. So welcome everybody. I hope that you think about your work today, and our work is here together. I want to make sure everyone feels welcome. I'll let you know, for those of you who are new, that we ask that you keep yourself muted when you're not speaking, that you use the raise hand function or wave your arms madly about if you don't have access to that, to be recognized. And then to keep your video off if you're doing something that might be distracting, but put it on whenever you can so we get to meet you in somewhat person. So when we see you on the street, we might recognize you there too. We use the chat for our communication during the meeting, especially if you're new and you have questions. That's a good place to get answers that don't interrupt the flow of things. And it's not disrespectful to use that as a really good way to communicate during the meeting. So with that, if anyone is here that's new or would like to say hello, I'm not asking for a long introduction, just your name and if you're affiliated with a group, and especially if you have a group you'd like us to hear about, Teresa Power Judas will put her information in the chat, and you can speak with her about the possibility of doing something more lengthy in the future. But for today, just if you'd like to say hello, it's a friendly spot, no pressure at all. So I see Jim. Oh, that's Jan. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Abby. It's my first time on the meeting. I'm a current student nurse at St. Martin's University here at Nativity House. So just wanting to say hi to everybody. Nice to meet everyone.
Good job.
Welcome, Abby.
Thank you.
I'll jump in here. Hi, my name's Bianca Shell. A lot of people know me as Brogan, and I'm the new program manager at the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department for the street medicine program, which my understanding is you guys have been waiting very patiently, maybe not patiently, for this to get online, but I started March 17th. And yeah, I've been really hustling to get everything in place to get launched. I'll give just a little bit about me. Tacoma is home, but I'm from the Midwest and the South. Went to Evergreen, Portland State. I used to work at the health department under ACA enrollment. I also cut my teeth at HUG, Hilltop Urban Gardens. And before this, I ran Sonoran Prevention Works down in Arizona, which I scaled to become the biggest naloxone distributor in the country. So you know, I'm Black, I'm queer, I know Tacoma, and I have lived experience. Yeah, we're going to get this going.
Well, welcome. We really have been waiting and we're glad to see you here. Thanks, Bianca. Sabrina, or you're just,
Clapping.
I was clapping,
I,
but
I saw that, but you can say hello anyway.
hi everyone. My name is Sabrina Schmuller. I'm Councilmember Ayala's assistant. I'm so happy to join today and thank you for having us.
Welcome, Sabrina.
I'll follow Sabrina in that. Good morning, everyone. Rosie Ayala here, council member for District 4. I hear I get to speak a little longer later today, so I'll reserve my comments for later. Thanks for
Welcome.
having us.
Very good to have you. So Rob, do you see anyone else?
Not at this moment. I do see Alexis introduce themselves in the chat, so thank you for that.
All right, so take it up.
All right. So thank you, Rosemary, as always, for setting the tone for these meetings. And let's launch into the segment we do every week, which is asking folks who are out and about in their communities to share what they're seeing on the streets this week. If you are doing outreach, if you're out in your community and noticing changes in needs for folks, this is an opportunity, time to raise up those concerns, with the only caveat that we ask that you don't share precise locations where folks are. If you do have a precise location in mind where you would like to see some outreach folks go out and talk to people, please send that in a message to me in the chat and I can make sure to make that connection. So let's get started. Sarah, I see your hand is up first. And Sarah, I see you're unmuted, but I cannot
Can you hear me
hear you.
now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I'm Sarah Howe. I'm a member of Pierce County Association of the Blind and Washington Council of the Blind. And we had a situation where two males who are legally blind are homeless. And that concerns me. They were refused shelter. And I'm actually looking to contact somebody in Tacoma pro bono because I've learned some things. I've talked to the advocacy committee and there's some issues about that, but I'll keep that. I'm just going to say that these people really need a place to stay.
Yeah, thanks for raising that up, Sarah. And I don't know necessarily if Tacoma Pro Bono is going to be the best resource, but that's a good place probably to start.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be able to do chat today. I can't go into details, but I can't do chat right today. So if somebody can
Okay.
forward me the chat information, because somebody might be communicating something to me on that, and I just not able to do it today.
Yeah, I will relay that Amber shared in the chat asking whether the two individuals had filled out an application with DSHS or COPES to see if they're eligible for funding in an adult family home
They're
or
not
living.
they're not eligible. They're too
Okay.
independent.
Okay. All
We've
right.
discussed
I
that.
will forward
Thanks.
you the chat in an email after the meeting, Sarah.
Thanks, Rob. You're the best. You all are.
I don't know about that. Some days doesn't feel that way. All right. Who else has something to share that they're seeing in the community this week? Yeah, Courtney.
Yeah, I've got reports that the Tacoma Police Department is um, taking it upon themselves to, I think it's basically Terry stops, where there's no articulable suspicion of a crime being committed, but they stop and they ask for ID and they run people and will take them in on warrants, even though the person wasn't doing anything that justified being stopped. So and they're not doing it in response to calls of property owners or anything. It's just they're driving by and seeing people and deciding to stop and harass them. So the ask is, if you see it, stop and record it, please. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for raising that up, Courtney. Anyone else with updates on what they're seeing on the streets. Sally, anything you would share from what you're observing in the Mid-Hilltop area?
Just still really small groups of people, which make them more vulnerable, getting moved around a lot. Same observation as Courtney in terms of lots of police interaction, but not sure if it is complaint driven or the police just decided to stop and hassle people. So I can't interpret that without more information. But it's worrisome.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. And I'll share that just in my being out and about around town, I am seeing a lot of people being very mobile. I think it's because they've been um, systematically harassed out of different parts of town and are trying to find places to land. So I know I observed that walking through my neighborhood yesterday, and see it quite a bit when I'm running around the community. Teresa, I see your hand up.
This is just a little reminder that we do now have showers at the supply closet, and they've not been fully utilized. So we can do 4 showers each Tuesday and Friday from noon to 2. So if you know someone out there who is looking for that service, it's right down there. I'm going to post it in the chat, but know that along with being able to get some supplies, people can now get showers. And Oneida has been she's the one who's there on Tuesdays, and she is just a very welcoming person. And I want to shout out to her too.
Thanks, Teresa. And yeah, Oneida is everywhere. She was down in Olympia last week, last Friday when we had a rally. You are everywhere. Thanks for all that you do. Anyone else with updates from what they're seeing on the streets? You're cloned. We need more clones like you, Oneida. All right. Well, if you have other updates, you can share them in the chat. Jessica, go ahead. And you're currently muted. There you go.
It's taking me a second to toggle my toggles. So I don't know even where my camera button is right now. I'm just, again, the toggles are doing me in today. But I am noticing, like, kind of to ride on someone else's coattails about independent people. I'm finding, so I'm with CTI Pierce County, and we work with navigation, helping people get stability and find housing and things like that. And it's what to do before we find housing that I'm having problems with. And I'm hoping offline, maybe some people can give me, or in the chat, people can give me suggestions. But I'm finding single men have been really hard to help. They're not vulnerable enough to be vulnerable, and at the same time, they're not safe. And then I do have another situation with a couple of pregnant women who one of them is on bed rest, but she has to do bed rest in her car. She's, I think, 6-7 months pregnant, and in her car with preeclampsia, which I think is scary. So I think if anybody can throw some resources in the chat for non-shelter ways to help our kind of single individuals, as well as our sick individuals, if anybody's finding ways outside the medical system for that. Then yeah, Slater says hi.
There's always somebody crashing the meeting.
Yeah,
thanks for that, Jessica. And if folks have any ideas for resources, the chat's a great way to share that. And Sarah, I see your hand up. Why don't you close us out on this segment?
I just wanted to comment on the preeclampsia situation. That's very dangerous and can be fatal.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody knew that. I just wanted to make that point.
No, it's and she's also got gestational diabetes. She's very and
girl.
My frustration is as much with the hospital as it is with everything else going on. This isn't the first time that I've had a seriously ill client the hospital can't hold them, so they have to go to their car to either recuperate from a surgery. I've had somebody recuperating from back surgery, that kind of thing. It's
Oh, that
scary
poor
stuff.
girl. That
Yeah.
scares me to death, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's horrible. So Jessica, there is a note from Jan Runbeck in the chat with her phone number asking you to give her a call. So maybe there's some resources that Jan can help refer to you.
Awesome, thank you.
Rob, this is Keith with
Hey,
Virginia
Keith.
Mason, Franciscan Health. Jan knows how to get a hold of me if it's something that the hospital can do better.
Great.
I'll let her speak with Jessica, but I'm available if they need me.
Thank you, Keith.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's move on to our partner spotlight for today. And I'd like to invite, and I hope I do not butcher your name, Apurva, but we're going to hear about the Hepatitis Education Project. And how do you, did I butcher your name? Is that close?
Perfect, Rob. It is Apurva. You got it perfectly right. Thank you. First try.
That's just luck. Do you have slides that you need to share at all?
I do.
Okay, great. Let me give you that ability.
Okay. I'll try to keep everything short and sweet.
No problem. And you should be able to share slides now.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Really honored and feel blessed to be part of this meeting and to speak with you today. And I love this opening. And Rosemary, thank you for that opening. It was really lovely, and I appreciate all the updates. So I'm just going to go quickly through to talk about hepatitis, which is another issue that a lot of our joint clients.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if everyone else has Apurva frozen.
Yeah, mine. There you go. You're back now, Purva. For whatever reason, you froze up. You might want to just put your turn your camera off and see if that helps with the bandwidth.
Yeah, let me do that. Let's see. Okay. Okay, let's see if that works. And just let me know if I bumble out or anything.
Sure, no problem.
So yeah, we're an organization that also we have a national scope. We also work across Washington State, which I'll get to in a minute. And then we do some direct services with primarily unhoused populations here in Seattle. And I'm just going to take you on a bit of background very quickly to just talk about what is viral hepatitis. Our core mission is to essentially eliminate viral hepatitis as a cause of disease anywhere here in Washington and around the country. So viral hepatitis very basically it's an infection that causes severe liver disease, cancer, and death. And when we talk about viral hepatitis, we're really talking about hepatitis B and C. They're the two most common types. And some things that people don't know is together they're a leading cause of liver cancer, a major cause of cancer overall, and they are a bigger killer globally than HIV or malaria. So not always like in the news or front of mind, but still a very, very serious group of diseases. And then, just to give you some numbers, we're going to focus on hepatitis C today, which is really the disease that really affects our populations. There's about 2.4 million people in the US infected with hep C, so a lot of people, and then 60,000 people here in Washington State. And you can see the bottom there, hepatitis C, the deaths from it, over a long period of time outnumbers deaths from HIV and the 60 other infectious diseases combined. So just a really sort of major problem that a lot of times goes unreported and can be a bit silent. And the reason, we're talking today is that hepatitis C mostly occurs amongst three groups of people. And a lot of these groups are overlapping, but 90% of cases occur amongst people who inject drugs or formerly injected drugs, people who are in and out of the criminal justice system, and then people who are experiencing homelessness. And you can see the prevalence rate, so about the percentage of people in each of those groups who actually have hepatitis C infection. And you can see those rates are very high. amongst sort of the general population, we have a rate of less than 1%. So it's a severe disease that's very prevalent. One of the scary
You cut out again, Purva. So
Yeah, you cut out again.
so actions to stop it are really important. Okay, so the disease is really bad and it can really spread really far. So what do? We're very lucky is that we actually have a cure in place for hepatitis C. New medicines came out about 10 years ago, and they are on the label. It says 98% effective cure, and really everyone who starts taking these medications ends up getting cured. You know, it's a very simple regimen, about 1 to 3 doses a day for 2 to 3 months. Typically low side effects and can be prescribed by a wide variety of providers. So it's really just a wonderful, wonderful medicine that really does the job of curing someone from their disease and also preventing the spread of hepatitis C to others. So really having that positive, huge impact. So because these medicines came out here in Washington and we're a leader in public health, Governor Inslee moved forward to become the first state in the country to declare that we are going to eliminate hepatitis C. And he set out a goal of doing that by 2030, and he put together this plan. And that's kind of our main guiding document as a hepatitis-focused organization. So the good news is there's been a lot of progress. So thousands of people have been treated. We've had a greater than 50% reduction in annual incidence, but still way too many people are infected with hepatitis C and not getting that treatment. So less than a third of people diagnosed with hep C are actually receiving the treatment. And it's really an issue of disparity. So people who are experiencing homelessness, who are in and out of jails, and who are injecting drugs are much less likely to have received hepatitis C treatment. So it is an issue of equity that we need to solve. And so really the question to you today is what we're asking is to understand how we all can work together to kind of link more people into treatment and care for hepatitis C. We really have this wonderful medicine available that will help a lot of people, and we want to work with all of you to figure out how do we do that. Specifically, our request to you, and we can talk a little bit about this if we have time for discussion, is to put us in touch with case managers and anybody who has client-facing work. These can be housing case managers, reentry case managers, recovery, substance use treatment case managers, whatever it may be. We would love to talk to you. We would love to connect you, and we'll have to figure out how we might be able to work together to ensure people get this wonderful, wonderful medicine and we get rid of this terrible disease. So with that, that is the end. We can tackle hepatitis C and kind of a severe grave disease if we work together. And I look forward to hearing from you and working with you potentially.
Great, thank you so much. And do you, so Jan in the chat just asked a question about how does hepatitis C spread?
Yeah, so primarily it is spread through sharing of needles while partaking in injection drug use. There's other ways it can spread, but that's probably 80% of cases. There's also male-to-male sex is another way that it spreads, as well as you know, non-sanitary tattoo practices that sometimes you see in jails and prisons.
Okay.
Probably the 3 most common ways.
Great, thank you for answering that. And Teresa, I see your hand up.
So thank you. I didn't realize most of what you said there today. That was eye-opening for me. And I'm wondering, what here in Pierce County, you talked about King County. Is there anything that your group is doing here in Pierce County specifically other than talking with us, which is a good start?
This is the start. So we are not doing much in Pierce County, unfortunately. We have worked with a few groups out there when we may host a testing event in later in this year, which will be nice. But we would really love to connect with groups out in Pierce County. We'd really love to expand the services, specifically groups who do have case managers who have that direct interaction with people experiencing homelessness, people who are struggling with substance use, or people who are in and out of jail, we would really love to connect with you and talk to you and provide training and all sorts of fun stuff.
Great. And anyone else with other questions? Apurva, it'd be great if you could drop your contact information and website in the chat. And then I do see Oneida asking in the chat if there's any statistics on hepatitis C at the Northwest Detention Center.
Yeah, I do have those statistics. There's very high prevalence there. I want to say approximately 30% of the people tested at both the detention center, that detention center, are hepatitis C positive, but I need to check and confirm that, and I'll get back to you all.
Great. And I did mention in the chat, I don't know if you've had any interactions yet with the Tacoma Needle Exchange. That seems like a natural fit.
Yep. So we talk to Dr. Lang frequently. It's great.
Oh, great.
Great contact.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today, and hopefully we can help make some connections.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you to everyone. Really an honor and privilege to be here.
Thank you so much. So our next segment, I am going to hand things over to Jan Hutchins to get us started. So Jan?
Thank you. Today we have the opportunity to meet the two new Pierce County Council members, Bryan Yambe and Rosie Ayala, and they're each going to have a chance to tell you a little bit about themselves, and they're going to be asked about the impending shelter closures and what they hope to bring to the council. And if you have questions, I'm going to ask you to put them in the chat, and we'll give them each a chance to address those questions at the end. And I'm going to start off with Councilmember Ayala because she may need to be leaving. And I wanted to just share with you that I personally had the opportunity to see her out and about during the pit count, and also interact a little bit here at Coalition smaller meetings. And so it's very nice to see somebody who is tuned into the Coalition already. So Councilmember Ayala, can you tell us who you represent and a little bit about yourself? And then once again, ask you about the closures.
Yeah, well, thank you so very much for that introduction. Appreciate it. Can you all hear me okay? I've been having issues.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll start off. I'm Rosie Ayala. I represent the 4th District, which is a big part of Tacoma. I am west of Portland Avenue, south of South 19th, and north of 84th, along with University Place and Fircrest. There's a little gap there in the west side of Tacoma, but too much to explain. I've had the privilege of being in this particular space a few times, and I have to say one of the more impressive things about this coalition that I have to give you all kudos for is your ability to really build off of one another for like emergency needs. And I think that's one of the things that we need to do better on in our other spaces that then would be complementary to the work that this coalition is doing. So we'll get there. We will make strides to get there. Something else that I wanted to mention, kind of related to me and the work that I've done. I shared this during my campaign year. I wasn't too incredibly vocal about it, but I myself had some experience with homelessness in my early years, and so I draw a lot of my granted it was many years ago, but I draw a lot of my direction from that experience, knowing all those ancillary components that led to that circumstance. And I say that as an individual who had privileges, who still ended up in those circumstances. So regardless of an individual's background, there is so much more that may lead to their story as to how they become unhoused. That is I think in the spaces that I enter, there's just a rhetoric of how and why someone becomes homeless that is untrue, or not fully true, not 100% true. And so the spaces that I enter come with that in mind. I'll jump onto the question on the shelters, but I will stick around through myself and Councilmember Yambe's presentation for any of. I want to make sure that I'm here for all the Q&A. Regarding the shelter closures, we know that we need what is it, about 6,800 emergency shelter opportunities relatively soon. We know that about 2,600 of those are exclusive to the city of Tacoma. I know the city of Tacoma is working with the state to figure out how can we keep some of this going. I know that I've engaged in some advocacy for funding to keep that going. And I also know that Washington, this is the not great news. Also know that Washington State is a target from our national government when it comes to funding because of our focus on vulnerable populations, regardless of identity. And so at this point, we are trying to put out many fires related to housing, related to education, related to LGBTQ individuals, related to Latino communities. And we are really hoping that we can develop a system or enhance a system that leans into those folks who have those hearts that can take on individuals. I had a conversation with Congresswoman Randall yesterday morning on housing and homelessness. We had several folks at the table that talked about this and talked about their struggles. And everyone is attacking this crisis from a different lens. And so I think this coalition is going to play such a critical role in informing how we strategize what that, like who's on first and who's on second. I know Councilmember Yambe is one of our council reps for the Unified Regional Approach on to End Homelessness. I hope that he'll be talking about that a little bit. If not, I'm pinging him right now to talk about that as he does his presentation. But that approach is kind of the long runway, and we need short-term solutions to what this looks like. We don't know, let's see, I forget how many days we're out, but we'll know kind of what comes out of the state pretty soon. And from that, we'll start to do some priorities. In terms of achieving what I hope to achieve on council, I think I said this for the first time out loud to someone, to one of our policy analysts. I want to see a countywide, not coalition, but a real collaborative with some shared services. So we're reducing the administrative costs of doing the work that we do across many of our organizations to really standardize and know what those expectations for entry points are for our unhoused population, to know who our resource people are. I think right before this, someone talked about multi-care or the hospital kind of denying someone and we have an immediate name and a phone number, having that immediate name and phone number for anyone would be really important. As folks in night shelter are dealing with things, as folks that are doing intake or drop-in service are dealing with things. And I think lastly, something that I've talked a little bit more about is transitional housing. I know not everyone who is unhoused needs that permanent support. I know some folks just need that couple of years of support before they can transition to really get their sea legs going. And I think having some focus on that will allow us to redirect our priorities. With that, I do want to kind of give one shout out and one welcome. Bianca, I welcome to this work and for saying yes to this job and for doing everything that you're going to do, because we need it desperately. And I do want to appreciate just some of the data that was put forward in the chat early in this conversation. It is a sobering reminder of what the need is today and presently. And I think as much as we can have those daily reminders and have that reality check every single day, that will help us keep pushing for those individuals that need it most. So with that, I'll conclude. I'm happy to pass this back on or pass it on to Councilmember Yambe, but I'll stick around through our session.
Well, first of all, thank you so very much for being here. And I want to introduce Councilmember Yambe. And I first met him when I was a volunteer on the Obama campaign. And it's, as somebody who's getting older, it's just very exciting to see a younger person growing into a position of leadership who has a real interest in the people of Pierce County. And I know when I was with LASA, he attended our grand opening at Prairie Oaks. And then 2-3 years ago when we had freezing nights and we weren't doing as good a job responding to emergencies, a quick phone call to Bryan, because LASA was helping support the tent that was in Fife, and he came through and helped get us some much needed supplies. So Councilmember Yambe, I would like to introduce you now and ask you the same questions, which is, who do you represent? What do you want us to know about you? And can you say anything about the upcoming shelter closures?
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Jan, for that wonderful introduction. And I want to thank everybody on this call because each of you is playing an important role in tackling some of the biggest challenge of our day. And since my appointment in January, I'm just trying to immerse myself in the work and meeting all the stakeholders and volunteers and getting a larger grasp on what is happening in the county. So I appreciate the work that's being put in. Also, I will give a particular couple of shout outs to Sally for coming up to me in the Red Elm and advocating for seniors and those with disabilities on our street. I want to thank Garrett for the incredible accessible way of presenting the data in ways that breaks down the silos that government puts up. And being a health board member for smaller cities and then now at the county, it's really frustrating sometimes having these silos and not being able to do the data, what it means, and then breaking it down so that other people can access it and understand it. So you all are doing some incredible work in community. So first, I am Bryan Yambe. I am the honored to be the council member for District 5. Before my appointment at Pierce County, I was served 4 terms in the city of Fife. I got elected when I was 27 and a half. And I worked to try to make local government more accessible and more responsive. And it also meant that even though I recognized and that we recognize some of our limitations of being a smaller city, uh, ensuring that we understood the significance of where we sit as a region and what opportunities that even a small city can contribute, not only because of its geography, but because that we, and I thought that it was important that we play a role in recognizing that we all have a stake in one another and that it's up to everybody, including smaller cities, not only Tacoma, not only Lakewood, not only the larger cities, but even the smaller cities do our part. So a lot of where I'm coming from is coming from the outside saying, hey, if Fife can do it, if Fife can start a jobs program to address homelessness, then other cities cannot say that there's no ability to do that. So I proudly represented Fife in regional and local things. I met Rob through reaching out to Tacoma and DC to find out how we can connect at the smaller city level and engage. And sometimes those opportunities weren't there, but they have evolved over the years. Since January, I've been meeting residents, going to neighborhood meetings, talking to stakeholders, and working with service providers. Really all in service of communities that have helped give me the opportunities that I have today. I'm a product of the region. Pierce County has been home and, well, not home, but it has shaped my family for 4 generations. And so my passion for public service, to tell you where I'm coming from, is when I learned about my mother's family's experience being among the 120,000 Japanese Americans or people of Japanese descent who had their constitutional rights taken away, who had their property seized, who were forcibly relocated into American concentration camps, that had a huge impact in how I saw the world and how I saw my place in it. And so I made a promise when I was a kid that I would stand up to injustice. I would stand up for justice, for people's dignity, and make sure that nobody else would have to deal with those things again, or at least feel alone on the side of bullies, and to always stand up to bullies no matter what party, no matter where they come from, or what they stand for, or stripes that they wear. And so uh, that's the little origin there. And also, when I ran, it was to show that somebody with an unconventional background, a young person, a person of color, could try to run to win and try to do their part in making the world a little bit better when they left it. And so these things motivate me every day. It's things that constantly, I've always in my public service prioritized collaboration, relationship building, and ensuring that government serves its people. And so not only did I, do the point in time count in Fife, did the point in time count for Pierce County, but also I'm going out again with an outreach team for Common Streets, in the days, once in a while, just to check in and just to make sure that because I don't have that lived experience, that I'm at least trying to get perspectives and understand how other people are dealing with things. I had the fortune of being in a family where the one labor job that my dad had for 42 years at King County could support a family, but towards the tail end there, it wasn't. And so growing up, there's those decisions that you have to make. And, for most of my life before I came to the county, it's been the life of organizers, the life of things. So you're picking between, these, paying bills and what food to get, or if you can afford the counseling and those things. So it's been a real eye opener, and a perspective changer, and recognizing the privilege that I have, and not to miss out on those opportunities to make sure that other people have better opportunities than they had to start. As far as the county, the shelter situation, I think Rosie had it right. I know that, yes, we're lobbying at the state, and with the next couple days, and we'll see if they go into special session or not. I know that there are some dollars to expand shelters into unincorporated areas, and I know that we're looking at streams that are local control dollars. So it's really about working with Tacoma. It Some of that funds doesn't allow for creation of new beds, so there's some limitations, and we have to prioritize. And one of the things that happened when I signed on was they tapped me to be on the leadership team for the Unified Regional Approach to Homelessness because of that fight perspective, and the unique perspectives that I bring. And so I'm trying to ensure that the smaller communities and communities outside Tacoma do, I don't want to say their fair share, but all participate, and all put some skin in the game, no matter how that looks. And it's not defined at the moment, but to me, it's that it will only work, really work. And so far, the people at the leadership table seem to be earnest about wanting to take part in this, but it requires all of us to do it. And so, building those relationships, trying to figure out how it can be possible for communities outside to do their fair share and do their part, are things that I am focused on and not trying to lose the ball on. And the third, the long-term vision, I think, is in particular, my district, I am seeing, the housing issues, homelessness issues, transportation, and healthy communities are huge priorities, particularly lately food insecurity, and the huge numbers of seniors, and those low income who are depending more and more on our services for nutrition. And just it's the little things, that recognizing that often so many people of us are one paycheck away from being in those situations, that those numbers that Garrett, helped highlight, of the increasing seniors who are on our streets, and that even if we were to house and give them opportunities, that sometimes those jobs wouldn't be there. And so it's really about, for me, it's also important that we do these intergenerational things, because it's so important to both sides of the spectrum there, that young people get exposure, and that seniors have community, and that they're together. When we start separating and siloing off is when, loneliness and all these other things are factors. And it's often just trying to support people being able to keep the circumstance, or the house that they're in. And sometimes it only requires a little investment. And so they're not asking you, the government, to solve the problems. They're just asking for a little bit of help. And so those are the things that I'm trying to focus on. And that's the vision, I think, is that when we're working together to find these solutions, and working together to not silo off and all be doing 100 different things, often good things, but without with duplication and things like that. So that's where I'm coming from. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Are there any questions for either of the council members before they need to leave?
I have a quick question, and it's related to, I know there was discussion, a lot of discussion at the end of last year about changing zoning regulations so that it would be easier to create shelter sites, temporary or otherwise, in unincorporated Pierce County. And I'm curious if there's been any real progress on that so far, and where that effort stands.
I could jump in a little bit. Are you talking about the zoning regulations near Spanaway like?
Yeah, specifically, there are zoning issues with the creation of a temporary site in the Spanaway area that Lehigh was going to establish, but I know in general, currently the regulations don't allow a site to be created that will be there for more than 90 days, which is really not workable.
Yeah, there's funny enough, you mentioned that. I had a conversation with some folks yesterday about that. I would say actively there hasn't been much movement on it. I think there is some assessments that are being reconsidered there because of I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's some uh marsh kind of, stability concerns with the area. Is that
So
what
I
you're
think
referring
you're
to?
referring to the Good Neighbor Village, probably the Tacoma Rescue Mission is planning to set up.
Uh-huh.
The and I know that there have been a number of lawsuits that have slowed the progress toward creation of that site. But there was another location that's in kind of the Spanaway area where the Low Income Housing Institute had purchased the property to set up like a micro shelter site, but because of the zoning regulations in the county, they can't really move forward because it could only be there for a short period of time.
Um, I'll share. I will need to do some more homework on that, but I could definitely look into it. Thank you for that.
Sure. And we can reach out to others at the county. I just wondered if you'd heard any movement. Anyone else with questions? I see Teresa's hand.
Just this, thank you both. I'm wondering, I know that Danmeyer declared a state of emergency back in September and about homelessness. And my understanding was that the state of emergency was there because the funding streams were not being organized well enough. I don't know if I get that quite right, but are we still in a state of emergency? Is that part of are we going to be an ongoing emergency county-wide in the same way we are in Tacoma? That's my question to you.
I'm gonna say personally, yes. Officially, I don't know that I can give that answer. I think our housing concerns are big enough concerns that it requires some attention and some dedication and some funding and resourcing. The transition between I'm not sure how the transition between our executives really affected what a state of emergency, whether it's a proclamation or a status, may look like. But I know it's a priority of Executive Mellows. I know that it is something that will be definitely a heavy conversation topic in our budget year this year. So it is a priority. Whether it officially is considered a state of emergency, I'm a bit unclear.
We're coming with the really easy questions for you guys today. So
Love
I appreciate you bearing with us.
Mary Connolly had a question.
I saw that.
There we go. Not a question, but just a comment on the question about temporary housing communities. And also I'm Pierce County Council staff, so I'm not familiar with the situation around like the specific plan for Lehigh temporary housing community, but the 2024, I do know that there was some issues last year with zoning for temporary housing communities in unincorporated Pierce County. The 2024 comprehensive plan periodic update, which is different than the comprehensive plan to end homelessness, I'll note. But I do believe that includes goals and strategies to allow temporary housing communities in unincorporated Pierce County. And so then now Pierce County needs to update its development regulations or zoning regulations in order to allow that and align it with the comprehensive plan. So that's the update on the development regulations piece. I'm not particularly familiar with Lehigh and their plans.
Great, thank you, Mary.
And
And then
I want
I
to
know
add,
you needed to leave, Councilmember Ayala, so if you do need to step away, please feel free.
I'll stick around through Q&A. I
Okay.
also wanted to say Mary has been with us for a few weeks, and we're incredibly lucky to have them as part of the team.
Great.
so I think Sarah
And
Howe had a question, and then maybe that'll wrap it up.
I think Dr. Jarvie has his hand up too.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, I have a concern because this has come up several times. I'm concerned about people with visual and physical disabilities having difficulty finding a place to stay. They're stuck spending all their money on hotels and, barely being able to find, have enough food to eat and everything. And I'm just concerned because it's not safe for someone with a physical or visual disability to be on the street, and that's why they stay in hotels or motels. And I'm concerned, is there anything being done to try to make that easier? I actually have a proposal, and I'd be willing to meet with somebody on it because I have this idea that's been going around in my head, and it would be really cool if we could make it work.
I'm going to say, yeah, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so I also want to make sure that Councilmember Yambe can speak to any of these, but would be happy to meet. I think to the point of having just compliance with our shelters and ensuring that everyone feels safe and secure when they're accessing resources, that should be paramount. And I'd be more than happy to join in a meeting with anyone that's interested.
I do have a proposition, but I'd like to discuss it in person because it's very long and detailed, and I don't want to take up the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Maybe
No
that
problem.
can be facilitated. Make that happen.
Sarah, I'll sit in on that with Councilmember Ayala, so thank you for that.
and Dr. Jarvie.
Hey, I'm just gonna chime in because Rob said you had only got easy questions. So I want to kind of I want to say that we have really high expectations with the new direction of with the new county executive and the majority of people who care and who are moving forward and doing things. So I want to ask you both, what are your plans? Where are we going? What is changing? And what does the future look like to you with the council and with council member Mello? What are you going to do to get us to closer to the finish line?
I'm going to say something because I know Councilmember Yambe can't say this. There is an election year this year in which Councilmember Yambe is on the ballot. And my priority is maintaining that Democratic majority on the council. So that is important that we have the legislative branch have similar values to the executive branch that is going to be human-centered and justice-centered in our work. That it's, I think, and I don't want to rain on any parade. For me personally, we have one year, and this 1 year also involved a lot of transition. So I know there are high expectations of what this administration can do, but with it, we need to maintain those majorities. Additionally, We also have a charter review commission, which we have 3 people from every district represented on the charter review commission. The results of that commission will go up for a vote. It works differently than Tacoma. Tacoma City Council has to approve recommendations. In Pierce County, those are not approved. They work directly with the auditor on putting that up for a vote. And so depending on the results of that commission, we need to operationalize the vote of the people based on any changes that come out of that commission. So I would love to see some serious consideration from each of our districts around what our charter can look like in order to reinforce a government that works for the people and a government that works for the well-being of all individuals. I hope that answers a little bit of the question. I'll pass it on to Councilmember Yambe.
And well, if I could echo some of those, I would. But look, it's incredibly frustrating. I know for advocates and our community, I'm frustrated with the pace that some of this has not moved sometimes. But I recognize the reality is that if we do not have that majority, that we cannot legislate on some of these things, especially more bold legislation. And I'm not really inclined to do the more piecemeal right now. And that's what's really frustrating is that once if we can retain the majority, some of the more bold things will be coming, and it's just getting there. And so, but recognizing that we can't wait, recognizing that the numbers are continuing to go up, and honestly, if I could do both of those things at the same time, I would do it. And so, I know that's not the answer that it's being looked for, but I recognize that the clock is ticking, and so I'm as inclined to figure out what we can do together in the time that I have on here and the time that we have the majority. So
I do want to add one more thing, especially to the note of the clock is ticking. My conversation with Congresswoman Randall yesterday talked about what is happening at the national level. And I think something that she shared with me that I had not thought of is we currently have a national administration with control on all sides. And so to the degree possible that we can reach out to our red-leaning communities to talk to their Congress people and to really air out the issues that are being heard, that is going to make a difference, because we need those individuals across the aisle to speak up for the needs of the community. And there are rumors that they're just not hearing that message because of the assumption is because folks don't feel that they would be heard anyways. But the continued message is that we need that support, and at this point we need to have our Republican colleagues, call their Republican colleagues and really make a difference, whether it's by 1 vote, 2 votes on some of these things that eventually trickle down to the local level.
Oh, and one more thing I'll put out there is that I can only speak for myself, but I want to work with people where they are, including my Republican colleagues, to get things done on behalf of all of our communities across Pierce County. And look, if anyone in this room has some solutions that I can, that are workable solutions that I can push through, then I will be all ears, and I will work to do those things with what we have at that moment. So I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to sit here and wait until after election, or I'm sitting here and, because honestly, so please push us, you got to hold us accountable too. This is a two-way street. We need your support, but we need us to be held accountable and show up in those council chambers and push back, because as you can probably see in recent days, that we are getting hammered from different directions. And so it's playing protecting our communities at the same time doing the things that we do to build them up. We recognize that's how we're trying to play this. And so we have to do both at the same time. We can walk and chew gum at the same time too. So but yeah, it requires you're holding a shield in one hand and then you're fending it off with the other, a weapon with the other. So
Courtney, I see your hand up.
Yes. My name is Courtney Love. I'm with the Lived Experience Coalition. I've been homeless and I have since been unstably housed. I would like to encourage our elected officials to remember that homelessness response doesn't prevent homelessness, it responds to it. And so if we want to actually prevent or end homelessness, we have to address the root causes, and that is outside of homelessness response. And you, the two of you are uniquely positioned to do at least some of it. Some of it not, but you could use your positions as bully pulpits and support. Like we could have a state level single payer healthcare system, not within your purview, but that could be a bully pulpit item. There is legislation available and an organization to support. You can see it wholewashington.org. And then, but labor justice, living wage jobs, that is within your purview to some degree. And, 40% of unhoused people have jobs. They just can't afford the housing. We could decommodify housing, support social housing. So I hope that you all are looking at the root causes of homelessness and what you can advocate for and work on outside of homelessness response. So thank you so much for your time here and your considerations.
And Rosemary.
That was a mistake. I was trying to give a little clap for Courtney and I hit the wrong button. Anyway, thank you very much, both of you, for your presentation. I look forward to working with you. And that Courtney's stuff was really right on. So thanks very much.
All right, Jan, do you want to wrap this up?
Thank you. And thanks, Rob, for seeing hands. I'm not used to looking for those. So, and
Yep.
thanks for both of you and your staff, who was wonderful to work with in setting this up.
Yep, and please know that you're welcome to join us anytime.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
All right, so let's shift over to our regular government updates, and we can get started with any updates from the city of Tacoma. And maybe we don't have anybody from the city on the call this morning. And if that's the case, why don't we shift over to updates from, oh, there's Danielle.
Danielle.
Sorry, I was listening to everything on speaker. Can you guys hear me? I know my mic has some issues. You can't. Okay.
It's really faint for some reason.
Yeah, I don't like using my headset, so you said it really fast and I wasn't ready for it.
That's my fault for being too abrupt.
All right, is that better?
Much better.
Okay. So I don't have as many updates as I would like to have for y'all this week. I do have an update for, look at my weekly report. So as you are aware, we are working to stand down the shelter at Alzheimer Memorial Church. We've been working with the program they began with. I think their census was somewhere in the 30s. But in the most recent update we have, they have been able to help support quite a few of those families get into housing. And so as of Monday, they had 11 residents total on site. including the women, families and children. So we're working closely with several different providers to help get folks transitioned into housing. And we welcome anybody who wants to provide support with that. As far as the overall update for the anticipated stand down of the other emergency and temporary shelters, I can't provide that update today, but we are working on gathering all that information and confirming what resources are going to be available. And we should have something to y'all probably either maybe next week or the following week. We'll have a update for you. So.
Thank you, Danielle. Any questions for Danielle? All right, not seeing any. Let's shift over to updates from Pierce County Human Services.
Good morning. I am on the Key Peninsula and we have no power. So I am
You're
all
winging
of
it.
Peninsula Light lost power. I'm winging it. So,
So Valerie,
I
your
got
audio
all kinds of weird
is,
devices.
there you
Pierce
go. You're
County's
better now.
update is Monday. We have the comprehensive plan to end homelessness event over at Sprinker from 9 to 12. Please register. Please come. It is the 5-year mandatory by the state update that is due. Oh,
We're hearing you better now.
event on Monday from 9 to 12 at Sprinker. So please come. The next is the coordinated community plan, which is that first plan coming out about that. It is YAB. Okay, perfect. And then Anchor Community and the inclement weather policies will go to the exec on Tuesday. So great work to that task force for getting that done. That's it. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions for Valerie? Not seeing any at the moment. Thanks for working through those circumstances with power there, Valerie. I think we got the gist of what you're saying, even though at times it sounded like you're underwater. So let's shift over. I see Isaiah on the screen. Any further updates from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department?
No, the only real update on my end is that there has been a change in my role, and Rob, I mentioned this to you last week since I was gone. But I have been, well, not a total change, but a reassignment, I'll say, is that I have been assigned to support and work on the new street medicine program here at the department. So I've been moved to strengthening families, and I have a new director or a new supervisor who is Bianca Brogan-Shell. And so I've been tasked with doing outreach and also just doing general support, program implementation, program evaluation, doing partnership building, that kind of thing. So I'll still be here. I'll still be providing general updates for the department, but you'll see me more in a more direct service capacity.
Great.
Mhm.
Glad that you'll still be with us,
Mhm.
Isaiah. All right. And how about any updates from Pierce County Emergency Management? I saw Wyatt on the call earlier. There you are, Wyatt.
Hey, Rob. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. No significant updates. We've been attending the inclement weather task force meetings, supporting human services in that work. Otherwise, our duty officer is monitoring as usual. We've had some nicer weather, so hopefully we can keep that going for a while here. And we're here if anyone needs anything.
Great. Thank you, Wyatt. And I will mention, just in relation to inclement weather that's been mentioned a couple of times, this morning's the first time I found myself checking the heat risk maps, because next week there's some temperatures rising into the upper 70s potentially. But good news, that shows up as minor risk on the heat risk maps. So, thank you all. Any questions for our government folks before we move on? And yeah, Sally, I see your note about how cold it was Tuesday morning. A couple of mornings this week have been extremely cold, right on the verge of thresholds that we would use for cold weather. So yeah, this is a weird transition time. All right, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda. I shuffled things around a little bit. We didn't do the advocacy updates yet, so why don't we move to that? And Sally, since you're on screen, do you want to talk about opportunities locally?
Yeah, at the city council is busy dealing with making a choice for the interim city manager. Remember that Elizabeth Polly retires at the end of June, and so their study session agendas are light and don't include anything on our list. But the big action is going to be at the Community Vitality and Safety Committee. On May 8th, there's going to be a big report on TMC 8.19, and that may be, as Danielle alluded to, that may be the place where the conversation about shelter and state resources and all that may take place. So I would urge you to mark your calendar for that meeting, 4:30 on May 8th. And then on June 12th, same committee will be looking at opioid funding strategy and looking at the rental housing code, also issues of interest to us. And then on May 20th, the Government Performance and Finance Committee, which is sort of a sleeper committee that I haven't been following, but I'm paying more attention now. They're going to be talking about the city's public records policy. And if any of you have ever tried to extract information from the city through the public records request, you may want to be on this meeting and hear what they think they're doing versus what we experience when they do it. So that's an interesting one. At the county, the process is going forward to confirm the new director of the Department of Emergency Management. So they're a key partner of ours. So that's happening. And there are two important immigration related items on the April 29th county agenda. One is a reaffirmation of essentially the county's welcoming approach for all people and their commitment to serving all people in our county equitably and being protective of our folks. That's the one that the sheriff doesn't like, FYI. And then they also have a resolution or an ordinance on that agenda to drop out of the E-Verify program, which they joined in 2010 as a way to verify the immigration status of county employees, but they enumerate the many reasons why E-Verify is not a reliable system, and so there is an ordinance on the agenda to drop out of the E-Verify system. That is a meeting, if you care about immigrant and refugee issues, that is a meeting that you probably want to pay attention to. You may want to send written testimony in advance or show up and testify either in person or virtually. And that one is August 29th. That's Tuesday at 3 o'clock is when the county council meets. That's what I have, Rob.
April 29th. You said August accidentally.
Sorry.
Nope, no problem.
I was in the heat. Sorry.
There you go. Yeah, I planted that seed. So I coincidentally I just received a text urging folks to attend that meeting on the 29th. So that's very timely. So let's see. I can give a quick update on what's happening in Olympia. As has been mentioned in the chat a couple of times, it is beyond crunch time for the state legislative session. The regular session is supposed to come to an end. Well, it will come to an end on Sunday night, by midnight on Sunday night. But there's still the possibility and lots of speculation about whether there will need to be a special session. A lot of that's going to depend on where things land with the budget and how the governor interprets the budgets that are being sent to him by the Senate and House. It looks like the Senate and House will pass budgets before the end of the weekend and before the session wraps up. But again, it'll depend on the interpretation and support for those budgets by the governor. I know that many of you may be tired of hearing me talk about rent stabilization, but that bill continues to percolate. We at the Housing Alliance, where I work in my day job, received notice that the conference committee that had been negotiating between the House and Senate to try to reach a compromise between the two versions of rent stabilization that passed out of each chamber had come up with a compromise yesterday in the evening, and that compromise is not going to make anybody happy. It is they are sending a measure to the House and the Senate today for an up or down vote that would impose a 5% rent cap for manufactured homeowners, which has been something that's consistent since a little while ago when it was altered in the Senate. Um, that would put the cap for residential tenants at 7% plus CPI, but no higher than 10% in any given year. So essentially would sync Washington's rent stabilization and rent caps with what exists in Oregon. Um, and then would also apply to everyone who rents in a single family home. So it would remove that exemption that was brought up in the Senate, and would change the, consumer price indexes in a measure of inflation. Um, and it's at like 2.8% in the Puget Sound index, for this year or as of the end of March. So that would mean what that would mean is that when this bill would go into effect, if it does, it would be a 9.8-ish percent rent cap for the first year. Um, I will say that nobody is happy with this whole situation. When we went into beginning the work on this bill 3 years ago, um, the initial push was to do 3% plus the consumer price index. Um, that bill failed to get traction and move forward, and the advice from supportive lawmakers was that they didn't want to include the CPI. That's what they were hearing from landlords, that was too unpredictable. And so the following year, we came back with a 5% suggested rent cap, and that did not have enough support to move forward. This year, we started the year with the proposal for a 7% rent cap for both manufactured homeowners and residential tenants. The Senate took it upon themselves to change the rent cap for manufactured homeowners to 5%. And then of course the Senate tried to the Senate version of the bill that passed off the floor was amended to 10% plus the consumer price index. And then now in this conference process rolled it back to 7% plus the consumer price index. Um, so we had a very tense meeting with some rent stabilization advocates last night. And many folks are conflicted and upset about where this has landed. So we'll see what happens with the legislation. There's no guarantee that it will pass the House and the Senate. However, it's crafted so that it has the high potential of passing both. Um, I will share that there was initially a request. We've been pushing all year that we didn't want to see the CPI included, and we did not want to go above 7% for the rent cap for residential tenants. When it became clear that the negotiation was for a higher rate, we being the Housing Alliance, asked lawmakers to just remove residential tenants from the bill, and they were not willing to do that. So it's a very awkward situation. I'm not happy. A lot of people are not happy, but this is where we're at right now. So we'll see how that passes, if that passes. And then the last thing I wanted to mention for advocacy is on a national level, and I'll send an email about this to the full coalition list. But folks at Housing Not Handcuffs are doing a major advocacy push related to a number of more than 150 folks who are homeless down in Oregon, who are living in the Deschutes National Forest. and who are slated to be evicted by the federal government on May 1st from the places that they're living. And so I will pass this along, but there's a request and also a call on Monday morning, super early for us, 8 a.m. Eastern time, so 5 a.m. our time on Monday morning to organize and advocate for the folks who are about to be evicted. The reason that Housing Not Handcuffs has selected this issue to focus on is because it is such a large number of people being displaced. And definitely, as far as they're aware, one of the largest groups of people being displaced in one action like this in recent memory. So I'll pass that along again on the email list. I see folks commenting in the chat. Thank you so much for that, and I will review those messages. And Rosemary, I see your hands up.
Just a quick point about the reason for this action is the logging that's being approved on forest lands that's part of the national administration's push. That complicates it because you care about both issues. So stopping the logging and stopping the displacement of these people are both important.
Yep. Yeah, so I'll make sure to pass that along on the email list after this morning's meeting. And I do see the comment, Sheila, about what lawmakers have been pushing for the higher rent caps. I can share an email later with that as well. I will say that in this rent stabilization back and forth that's happened over the last 3 years, it's been very exhausting. The amount of resources that have been spent on the part of the landlord lobby, I can't overstate how much they have put into this fight against the legislation. It's safe to say that this year alone, they've spent over $1 million trying to ensure the bill would fail. So yeah, it's been a David versus Goliath story for quite some time. And even though it's going to be very difficult to accept where things are at if this bill passes as is, the the truth of the matter is, at least for manufactured homeowners, this will probably be the lowest rent cap that we believe exists in the country for those folks. Um, and at least it would get us to the level of where Oregon currently sits with their regulations related to this. Um, but it's a huge disappointment. And as a number of folks on our rent stabilization advocates meeting last night pointed out, it's not lost on them, and they recognize that there is racism behind a lot of this, where this is currently landing, that the majority of renters across the state are BIPOC, and that the folks who tend to be BIPOC are getting the short end of the deal in this legislation. And that's definitely recognized and caused a lot of understandable dismay and frustration and anger, frankly. So we'll see where everything lands. But it will not be a giant celebration that we get rent stabilization passed in its current compromise version. So let's move on. Other items on the agenda. I don't have any particular updates on the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to end homelessness. Courtney, anything you would bring up? I know that we will have a meeting of the Implementation Advisory Board at the beginning of May, but I don't have any particular updates. Anything you would share, Courtney?
No, in the agenda building, I don't have any clear memories because it's been too much information's been added since then.
Yeah.
But it seemed pretty standard. And just that there'll be some reflections on if we're each in like the proper representation of our agency or organization. There's been some questions that can't be answered because the positionality of the people involved. So, they just don't have the information or the position to answer the questions. So, I think that's going to come up, but it doesn't feel like a high drama or it doesn't need a lot of public feedback. It's more of a self-reflection question that'll be offered in the moment.
Thanks, Courtney. And yeah, I apologize. I have not been able to be as plugged in as I would like just because I've over the last couple of months because of the work in Olympia. Oneida, yes, I see your hand.
I'm talking a lot today. So if this bill gets passed, is it set in stone, and what can be done about it next year?
So that's a great question. And it's probably one of the things that we'll talk about during our call with advocates this afternoon for the Housing Alliance at 2. Nothing is set in stone. So laws can be changed and the legislation can be changed. An example is that in Oregon, when they passed rent stabilization, they set the bill was originally set up without a top cap on it. Um, and they have since changed the regulation to land where this compromise that's being considered by the legislature here is at where it's 7% plus CPI, but no higher than 10%. Um, so those things can always be changed. The challenge is that it takes a lot of time and energy to make those changes, and there's some thought that the composition of the legislature that it will be harder to move this kind of legislation next year and in the next few years because of a number of people rolling out of the state Senate who, although moderate Democrats, have been somewhat supportive of rent stabilization. So there's that piece, and then it's always difficult to predict what the future looks like. But I will say things can change. And Oregon provides an example. We're about to see an example potentially here in the city of Tacoma, where the Tacoma City Council has the ability at the end of this year to change the tenant rights measure that was passed by voters. So, yeah, nothing is set in stone. But I definitely appreciate that question, Oneida. Anyone else with quick questions? All right. Next on the agenda, any coalition committee updates we want to share? I'll just share that there is a lot of hope with the website work group, that we might make progress toward the coalition shifting to a new website in May. That is my secret hope, that once the legislative session winds up, I'll be able to help with that transition to a new website. So that work group meets on Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. And if you have an interest in helping with the website, please join us. The other meetings that are opportunities for folks, if you're not aware, Mondays at noon, we meet for 30 minutes to talk about safe sites for all. That includes things like safe parking and the creation of safe sites for folks. And then at 12:30, we shift to talk about advocacy for a half hour. And then the other meeting that happens every week is on Wednesday afternoon from 3 to 4. The folks who show up, who are the steering committee, you show up, you're on the steering committee. help set the agenda for this meeting as well as other topics that we cover on those meetings on Wednesdays from 3 to 4. So you'll find all those committee meetings and work group meetings listed on the website, and everybody's welcome. How about some good trouble announcements and success stories to close out today's meeting? Anybody have anything they want to share with the 49 of us who are still here?
Rob, it's Sheila.
Hey, Sheila.
I want to thank everybody for allowing Goodwill to be a part of this coalition. I know the council member Yamba was on earlier, and I feel like he had a direct impact on what Norman Brickhouse is doing with the city of Fife. And I was able to work with Norman and help one of Goodwill's employees get out of homelessness with some rental assistance and things like that. So I guess what I'm saying is, the program works, but it does take a village for everybody to pull together, like Councilmember Yamba said. So that's my good trouble, my success story for this week. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheila. And I see a couple of hands up. Teresa?
This is a good news story, which you all just witnessed. Jan pulled together this little meeting for us of the two new council members at Pierce County, and I want to just thank her for that, and the fact that the questions brought out some good answers. I hope other people enjoyed it as well, but it is really good to get faces on the people who we have elected to represent us and to hear from them. So it does also help to remind them that this is what we have questions about. This is what we care about. So thank you, Jan, for that. Anyone can do that. You can come up. Not anyone can do it the way Jan does it. But if you want to come to the planning meeting, come with your idea about something you'd really like us to take a deep dive into. And, we don't turn people's ideas down unless you're really wonky.
Even then, you let me talk too long about legislative stuff, so some of us are wonky. Sarah, I see your hand up.
Yes, actually, it's a good thing I can multitask. I was paying attention to what was going on, but I was also communicating with a couple of people on email, and I was able to share a really good idea that I've had for a long time. And also, it looks like that there's a start of a committee being formed, and I'm just really glad to see this.
Thanks, Sarah.
Because if we can, because this committee will help those people with these individuals with disabilities, and I was able to share my idea with somebody who might be able to do something about it, and I'm also going to do some work on seeing what I can do about it. But this is really awesome because people have an interest, people are trying to help, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and thank you for sharing your ideas, and glad that connection's being made.
I'm just glad I can multitask.
And how about anybody else with anything for the good of the order? All right, well, I want to thank everybody for hanging in there for the full meeting, and say that do a quick reminder that there'll be a small group of us staying on this call, and after about a 5-minute break, doing some planning for upcoming meetings. For everybody else, I really hope that we'll see you again next Friday, and have a safe weekend, and talk to you all later.